we have an equation here. It's a quadratic trinomial. It's set equal to 0. You want to find the answers, right? So we're going to use the quadratic formula. All you got to do is know the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2 times a. And whenever you use this formula, you have to rewrite it, but with parentheses. X equals negative parenthesis plus or minus the square root of parenthesis squared minus 4 times parenthesis all divided by 2 times parenthesis, right? If you happen to forget this during the quiz, it's right there on the board, the quadratic formula. And I also rewrite it with parentheses instead of your B, A, and C. That way you could plug it in. So everything you need is on the board. So anyway, let's go back to this. So there it is. Let's identify the A value. The A value is 1, the number in front of the x squared. The B value is always the number in front of the x, which is a negative 4 in this case. And the C value is the number without an x, which is 6 in this case. So we're going to plug in the B value of negative 4 wherever the B's are at, which happens to be right here, negative 4, and right there, negative 4. And the A value is 1. You plug it in right there next to the 4 and down there next to the 2. And the C value is 6. That's the last parenthesis right there. And this is the correct setup using the quadratic formula. Now, you begin with the discriminant value. So the discriminant is the minus 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. And ladies and gentlemen, you could actually type all that in to the calculator. So if you're struggling with that math, all you have to do is type it in exactly the way it looks like right there, the discriminant, negative 4 in parentheses, power of 2, minus 4, open parenthesis, 1, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, 6, close parenthesis, hit equal, it'll give you the answer negative 6, right? Or negative 6, negative 8, I'm sorry. But anyway, I am going to work it out by hand. Maybe you don't have a calculator. This is how you would do it. You would start with negative 4 to the second power. That's negative 4 times negative 4. That's positive 16. And then right here, you could also think of the minus 4 as like a negative 4. Like minus 4 times 1 is minus 4. And minus 4 times 6 is a minus 24. And if you did 16 take away 24, that is a minus 8. So just by knowing that our discriminant is negative, we know that there's no real solution, all right? But what we're going to do is replace the inside of the square root, all this junk, we're going to replace it with the negative 8. I'm going to rewrite everything. A minus 4 becomes a plus 4, a positive 4. You have the plus or minus, you have the square root. But like I said, instead of all this, I'm just going to put the discriminant answer, which is negative 8. And because it's negative 8, I already know that the answers are going to be imaginary. So this is still all divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so in Algebra 1 on this worksheet that we have been doing, the solutions say no solution, right? The answer is that there is no solution, no answer. You could do a circle with a 0 with a line through it. That means no solution. But on the practice test that I gave, or the practice quiz using the quadratic formula, I did pull some questions from an Algebra 2 class that I had. And in Algebra 2, you can't just leave it like that. You can't just say no solution, even though it's true, there is no solution. But in Algebra 2, we actually pull out the negative and make it the letter I. It's imaginary, okay? So because it's imaginary, that's why there's no real solution. But in Algebra 2, I would like you to rewrite it as 4 plus or minus with an I on the outside. And then you have the square root of a regular 8, no more negative 8, and it's still over 2, okay? And then you would have to simplify the square root of 8. By the way, if you try to do the square root of negative 8 on the calculator, it would say error because the minus sign, it can't do the square root of a negative. The calculator can't. So that's why you pull out the negative as an I. Then you could actually do the square root of 8 on a calculator, and that will give you 2 square root of 2. Or if you actually wanted to show your work for the square root of 8, the square root of 8 is not a perfect square number, so you rewrite it with multiplication to get a perfect square number, 4 times 2. That way when you split the root, you could actually do the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of 2 stays. Anyway, what we have now is 4 plus or minus. The I is still going to be there, but before I write the I want to replace the square root of 8 with 2 square root of 2. So I'm going to put that blue 2 square root of 2 right there. And the I, I'm actually going to put it behind the number 2. So that red I put right there. and it's still divided by 2. So it's still divided by 2. Now at this point, we need to reduce this fraction, and that would be a 4, a 2, and a 2. All these numbers are even. You could divide all of them by 2. So if you divide all of them by 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, which you don't need to put, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, which you don't need to put, because anything divided by 1, it's unnecessary to put divided by 1. You just leave it the way it is without the divided by 1. So what's my final answer going to look like? Well, I have the 2, I have the plus or minus, and I have an I square root of 2 left over. I could put 1 I square root of 2, but I'm just going to put I square root of 2 left over, and that is your final answer that you would find on a multiple choice test on quizzes, right? It wouldn't be, well, technically the worksheet solution says that there is no solution. But in Algebra 2, we actually deal with that imaginary value, and you would simplify, reduce the fraction, getting this as a final answer, okay? So on the practice quiz, there's 2 questions where I actually want you to pull that negative out as an I, and then continue simplifying and reducing to get to your final answer. So just keep an eye out for that.